Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we're going to recap the 2022 IBJJF Pans. We're going to talk about the adult black belt divisions for both the men and the women. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Zach,
who just banged into the table.
Yep.
Back at the house. We're finally out of it. I'm back from Vegas. We're finally doing a show with the good camera.
Yeah, I missed Vegas this time. I was changing jobs when it came time to buy tickets and shit like that, and I made the decision not to go. And then by the time it actually happened, I regretted it.
Yeah. Now we know for Jersey, we know for Vegas next time. Yeah. Jersey's ADCC trials are 13 months away.
Oh yeah, that's coming up so fast.
I'm gonna go there. ADCC Worlds are in 20.
Yeah. I have my ticket for Worlds.
Yeah, in September. I got to book flights, and I have a lay of the land for Vegas. It's the first time going out there.
Yeah, that's nice. I got to book my hotel still. Also, I found out that there was a Nine Inch Nails concert that I thought people in the Grappling Rewind chat were talking about it, and I thought for some reason, because it was all the people that were going to trials, I thought it was during trials weekend.
It's that Thursday
and it's during
World Championship.
And I'm very disappointed because I absolutely would have bought tickets for that, but that's sold out now. So there's my disappointment for that.
This week in news. I don't have a ton of news this week. It was kind of a busy week for me and coming back from Vegas and all of that good stuff. I got my brown belt from Zach. That was fun. And Greg and Rob as well. Yeah. Kind of triple team.
Because Maine has to make everything super complicated, but
yeah,
we were happy to oblige.
If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you can kind of imagine, what it is dealing with me and and overseeing my progression as a practitioner. So I'll talk more about that in the outro because it was cool, and I've been doing this show for 5 years as a purple belt. We don't really ever talk about it a whole lot, but we'll talk about more in the outro.
Sure.
Because we have Pans this week.
Yeah.
We have some more invites for ADCC as well. I forget. I think a couple guys made the short list. We'll probably talk about that in more depth next week because Pans is a long show. We're also starting the show at about 10 o'clock at night. It's going to come out in about 2 hours.
Already past my bedtime.
Zach goes to bed at about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Usually.
So, fun weekend of grappling.
Yeah.
Let's kick it off immediately with the men's absolute. We have Eric Muniz defeating Felipe Andrew via points 4-0 with 2-2 advantages but for both guys.
Yeah, Muniz lately, man. So I after watching this match, I was so we'll talk about details of the match, but after watching this match, I was so impressed with how Muniz looked that I had to go back and look at his record and things, and just for shits.
His brown belt record or his early black belt record?
His black belt record.
Okay.
So since 2020, late 2021 or so, it's not been that long.
A year-ish, something like that.
A little over a year.
Yeah.
The dude has lost 2 matches at black belt total.
To who?
I don't remember that. I didn't write it down. One was Felipe Pena, which he got. No, one was Felipe Pena, which he got back later.
Yeah.
So he avenged that loss, and the other one was a name that I didn't recognize immediately. So I don't remember who it was, but it was a name that I didn't register for me immediately. So
okay. Which doesn't, by the way, if you don't know Zach, that doesn't mean a whole lot for Zach.
Yeah, it could be someone super good and super famous, and I just didn't.
Zach today will mess up names for former world champions. Zach is not a name guy. Zach is a technique and analysis guy.
Sure.
It is my job, unfortunately, to be the name guy.
Yeah.
So Zach not recognizing a name isn't necessarily
doesn't mean anything. Yeah. But then just looking through since that last loss, 32 matches in a row at black belt, Muniz has won.
Jesus.
And against legit guys, including Felipe Andrew in the finals here, dude's just been on an absolute tear, and he looked great in this match.
He did look great. One thing I was kind of confused about in this match is we have 2 points in the match that Felipe Andrew kind of sits really hard for a footlock and gives up 2.
I thought that at first.
Okay.
I don't think that's what actually happened because I went back and watched and I was like, Felipe Andrew is a smart technician and doesn't do that shit. He's very good at leg locks, but he doesn't do that,
and that's
right?
why I was so confused.
If you watch close, immediately before he it looks like he falls to the footlock, and maybe it depends on the camera angle that you were looking at, whether it was flow zone.
I had the mat side footage for all of these except the Jessica Khan match.
Yeah, I think I watched this one on flow zone, and on the flow zone angle, you can see that immediately before that happens, Muniz does grab the back of the ankle and bump sweeps him. So it's a very lazy sweep, but I think it was just enough that Felipe felt like he was going down and was I think the logic might have been, all right, this is enough to get my butt on the mat. I can either defend by recovering off of the sweep and then coming back to top, or I can go for this submission, potentially get it, and then try to see what plays out
Right.
in the long term.
Andrew's
And it
an
didn't.
outstanding footlocker in the gi and in no gi. Like, he has a lot of just flash subs over, Keenan, Hulk, like, like guys that are very, very good that do not get flash subbed very often. He has some very, very big wins with, stuff like that. So I watched that in this match, and that was one of the things that surprised me the most because, again, like you said, Andrew is a guy that we don't really see consistently. Like, that is not a thing he does.
No,
and
it's
that's
not.
why in my mind it stuck out so. I was like, why is he doing
I
that?
watched it 2 or 3 times to figure out what was happening because it was so weird.
I watched it twice and went, I guess that's what he did. Okay.
Yeah, he was getting it was a rather, I don't want to call it a weak sweep, but it wasn't like, it felt like Andrew had choices there. He could have either he had enough control of his own body for his hip to hit the mat and then him to recover back to top potentially, right? So he could have defended the sweep and it ended up being nothing, and it ended up being nothing. Or alternatively, what people can do there is go for the submission. The points aren't awarded until the submission is released, and so sometimes you can.
Is that for IBJJF? I am straight. So I did the rules seminar in
IBJJF.
Vegas, and again watching 20 plus hours of mat side footage of ADCC. Like, I didn't review the rule book before Pans, so again. Full disclosure for this week, if I mess up like a rule specifically for IBJJF, there's a couple points in my notes that I think I got it right, but if I do that, it's because I've been in ADCC mode for like 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
And again, doing the rules seminar there, like, it scores differently. I forgot if you had to clear the sub or not for IBJJF. I think
you do have to clear the sub,
just
or
forgot.
at least at one point in history you did.
It was a busy weekend for me, Zach.
Yeah, sure. But so I think he just made the choice to go for the sub.
Yeah.
Whether it was a intelligent points oriented thing, or he just thought that he could get the sub off the sweep, but there was a sweep attempt there, or was a sweep there, so I think it was legit.
There was a nice thing that Felipe Andrew threw later in the match. It was like what I call the Herber Santos knee bar, and it's the knee bar that you throw from 50-50 from like the low side knee bar. And it's really something that you only really see a couple of guys throw. And Herberth is sort of most famous for it because it's a really beautiful knee bar when he hits it, and hits it very quickly. But Felipe Andrew throws it here, and it's, to describe, basically, you're in 50-50, and then basically you spin your body all the way through it, and you end up with that kind of guillotine power grip knee bar behind the arm, the one that Victor Hugo finished Cyborg with at Worlds a couple of years ago, like behind the arm on it. And he throws that, and I was like, ooh, I'm curious to see how Muniz defends it, and he just kind of
he just
sweeps him off of it. Which was, again, another interesting, like, tactical thing for Felipe there, like, really going heavy into the footlocks.
Yeah. It looked... There were quite a few decisions that I don't fully understand in this match from Felipe. One thing that I did like that he did, that there was a really nice exchange in here, and I really liked what Felipe was doing, and then Muniz just defended so wonderfully that it ended up actually looking better for Muniz. But Felipe was in outside Ashi, and then did that thing we see every once in a while from people where they roll all the way through into crab ride.
Yes.
Right? And it's a super effective thing. We see it at lower weights a lot. You don't see it at
but
upper weights as much, but Andrew's the kind of guy that can do it.
We're starting to see it more and more. I have an interview with John Hansen that I'm doing, and he talks a little bit about that, kind of the change of the dynamics between the heavyweights and the lower belts as well. I'm going to hopefully get that out probably today or probably tomorrow. I hope to have the interview out from ADCC, but we're seeing more and more guys at the heavier weights like be athletes they can do the things that the guy like 5 years ago that you just didn't see as often.
You weren't seeing Orlando Sanchez invert for crab ride much, right? And now you have guys like Felipe Andrew who are huge, but also really athletic.
Also do that and use their body. And again, Muniz brothers, all of them can do that, and like it is less uncommon now to see guys at that size be able to do those things, and it's just interesting. We're seeing it again with Felipe Andrew. Like, hey, you're absolute finals, and we're seeing this historically kind of smaller guy technique.
But then it didn't work because Muniz did this really beautiful thing where as Felipe is coming through to get the second crab ride hook, Muniz drops his hand behind his own knee and sort of catches the foot, and then reaches down with his other hand, so he balances himself on the foot that's the crab ride hook is in on, while defending the second crab ride hook before it gets in, and then he's able to like sort of kick. Felipe would be able to kick out on it and really get him off balance. He locks in a toe hold while sneaking his hand down in and collecting from that second hook. And then what the really smart part about, like, anyone, I don't say anyone can do that, but like that seems like a very logical thing. I'll grab the foot before they get the second crab ride in. But what he did that I thought was really, really smart was he scooted his butt back over the knee and pulled the foot forward with the toe hold. So he grabs this toe hold that's kind of a weak toe hold.
Right.
He pulls it forward, extends the leg out just enough that he gets his butt over the knee so that second crab ride hook can never get in. And then he's able to sit on Felipe's hip and really, really crank this toe hold. Like,
yeah. He makes a face to when he does it. That's like, it's like a gritting feel. Like, I'm trying to break your foot.
I can't believe that tap wasn't happening. Like, he was trying to break that foot. And Felipe just walked normal afterward. Like, they ran out of bounds in it. He got his points
they kind of like rolled off the mat. It was pretty early in the match as well.
Yeah, and he got the points for the sub attempt off the mat, essentially. I don't think it was a fleeing thing, but
fleeing the mat, it's where they just changed the rule, and I've always figured that basically if you have something that goes off the mat, you get 2 a lot more often now. Again, I need to go back and
he
read
got
through
those
the
2
IBJJF
points
rules,
for it.
and he gets the 2 points for basically a submission attempt that goes off the mat.
But either way, they stand him up, take him back to the center, and Felipe's just walking normal. Like, that dude has to have rubber ankles because it was. I don't see how that didn't at least hurt him a bit. Yeah. But yeah, that's most of the match. Then things after all those nice exchanges, we end up in like a 50-50 situation. Felipe started trying to pass 50-50 like it was half guard kind of.
That was really strange.
Was so weird.
He pressured into Muniz's 50-50 for
minutes. Wasted a lot of time doing that.
I was super curious, like, what he was going to do or show there. Could he get his hips out? Or, like, was he going to slide by and try to, like, roll over? Because you can't – sorry, not saying you can't do it. It is not something that I see done with any regularity at any level that we cover on the show ever.
Yeah.
And so I was curious if maybe he was using it as bait. Like, hey, I'm going to pressure in this really hard. I'm going to force him to invert and try to take the back off it, maybe. But I didn't really know because he wasn't forcing the hips up super hard because Muniz is very flexible and he can get there. So he pressured in. He got like almost like an overhook on the shoulder, on the opposite shoulder for a little bit. But he never really did anything with it. And I assumed that, again, in kind of we see a lot of very, very great tactics from Felipe Andrew.
Yeah.
That he was going to do something else with it, and it just never came.
It never. It was very strange, and maybe there's just something that we're missing.
Yeah.
And that the dude has some way of passing through 50-50 that way that just it didn't come to fruition this time.
Full disclosure,
and
I
don't
only
know
got a chance this weekend to watch all of the finals matches.
Yeah.
I have not got a chance to run through and watch again where the show timing was this week. We had promotions at one of the gyms on Saturday. We had promotions today at the other gym, which is Monday. We're doing the show on Monday.
Yeah.
So like it's been a busy week. I coached all day on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because there was a tournament that happened on Sunday locally.
Yeah.
So it's been a busy couple days.
But even without having seen those things, it's just not something that I've never seen someone effectively pass through 50-50 using pressure in the way that he was. And it's possible that we're missing something. And right, these guys develop new shit all the time, so it's completely possible that we don't know what he was going for, but it just seemed very odd. He blew a lot of time working on that. It never really amounted to anything.
2+ minutes there.
At least 3. It was at least 3, and he was down during that time, and then the match kind of just fizzles because he spent so much time there and was never able to really mount any new offense, and so Muniz takes it. But it was a very dominant performance from Muniz there.
It was good. We're seeing more of Muniz. Not we're seeing more of him, but like it's cool to see him in majors against the top upper echelon and elite of the black belts. He's doing so well. Felipe Andrew earlier in the super heavy division actually ankle locked his brother. Yeah, Eric. So little revenge match there, but. Overall, kind of really interesting absolute match. I like that it wasn't a closeout. We have a lot of closeouts we'll talk about. I'm honestly too tired this week to have that annoying session. But I'll say one thing and then we go. So moving on to the ultra. You good with that match?
Yeah, good.
Moving on to ultra heavyweight, we had Roberto Cyborg Abreu defeating Gutenberg Pereira via score 2-0. It was 2-0, 3 advantages each and a penalty each.
Yep.
My first note is Cyborg passes like a motherfucker.
Yeah, so he was just working that Sao Paulo pass the whole time. But also, Pereira, I love the way that he was dealing with it. And honestly, like, Cyborg wins this match. He wins on a penalty point?
Pass. No, he passed. He has 2. Or so. No, that'd be sweet. Huh.
Yeah, so Cyborg's...
Oh, no, it was a defense of a back.
Yeah, that's what it was. It's a penalty. It was a running off the mat.
Correct. It was defending a position.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Out of bounds.
I was confused. I was thinking penalty, but it was an out of bounds.
I was like,
running from a
because
submission,
at one point Cyborg passes,
almost.
and I go, I would give him the pass for that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get the points for it, but that in my head I went, because I have a screenshot of it in my notes of just like Cyborg throwing this beautiful drop knee pass through Pereira's guard in a way that I have not seen a heavyweight throw a pass.
He exploded through. It was nice. But so he actually was never fully able to pass. Cyborg was not able to pass. He was doing a lot of Sao Paulo passing, and that's what he's known for. That's what he's been doing. He did all the way through the entire freaking tournament.
Which is a pass I like a lot. Like, he really, the way that he does it, and it's funny, we saw his girlfriend or wife, Grindotti,
she was trying to
struggle with
too.
it, but Cyborg, whenever he does a Sao Paulo pass, is...
So what Sao Paulo pass is a pass that does all of the things that you are traditionally told not to do in jiu-jitsu when you are in someone's guard, but still somehow fucking works. And so in the Sao Paulo pass, that's the pass that we're talking about, is where I'm in Maine's guard. I will get an underhook on the left side with my hand on the mat, which is like a big no-no, right? But I also lay my chest down really heavy on Maine's chest, and I start scooting my hips wide to turn his hips to the mat. So I have an underhook on my left side, and I have Maine's thigh pinned to the mat on his right side.
That's the really important piece of it, is also the guard is open usually. It's very rare to see this done at the higher levels.
Yeah, you can kind of keep it closed.
There's a certain angle that guys won't like try this pass at if the guard's still closed, and that's sort of what trips up Grindotti later. But Cyborg does it. He's able to open Gutenberg's guard when he does it, so Gutenberg can never like throw his topside hook over or take the back. But he can also, Cyborg does a great job of keeping the low leg for Pereira down, flat, completely on the mat.
I disagree. So I think Pereira did an incredible job dealing with the Sao Paulo pass, because he felt it once, dealt with it he dealt with it effectively.
The pass, the first pass, the first time Cyborg throws it,
but it just still didn't work.
Yeah, correct.
Right. Then immediately after that,
it works, but they go out of bounds, and they go out of bounds in a scramble, and he gets no points for it.
Yeah, so it didn't work.
Point taken, Zach. Also, heavyweights, please make the match larger. Come on, guys. IBJJF, this is some shit. I'm so tired of having this argument. There's so many like points that were out of the bounds. Like, just
there were a lot.
Bro,
of them.
ADCC figured it out. They figured it out. Just let them keep going, man.
Yeah. But so what Pereira does from that point forward, so he almost gets past. There's some scrambles. It ends up out of bounds. Cyborg gets the 2 points for the out of boundsness of it. Then
the out of boundsness of it.
Then we go back to Pereira's guard, and what Pereira starts doing is he gets the lapel across Cyborg's back and hooks his foot in under the lapel, so he can put upward pressure away from Cyborg's shoulder, turn Cyborg in to face him during that Sao Paulo pass. Cyborg continues trying the Sao Paulo pass, but with the shoulders turned like that, because he's got that pressure going through the lapel from his foot. He's not able to get the chest pressure down that he needs to turn in the direction that he needs to really effectively hit the Sao Paulo pass. And from that, Pereira sets up a triangle that he almost turns into an armbar, and he does that twice. And the second armbar was really smart too, because the first time he hits this triangle, Cyborg defends. He recognizes that there's an armbar available. He transitions the armbar. Cyborg is out of that because he spent a lot of time on the triangle and he was already too loose. The second time,
Cyborg was up very high, and he was really high. He never let Pereira like fully shoot his hips up onto it and really get Cyborg's posture down on the first one.
On the first one. And then the second one, Cyborg responds the same way, but I think Pereira was like, okay, I know how you're going to respond to this. He shoots the triangle from the exact same scenario, and then Cyborg sits up with it, and Pereira immediately switches the armbar and is actually able to invert on it, and it's pretty... Like, it was nice.
There's a thread on Reddit where like, oh, he tapped, and like I watched the match. I didn't. Yeah,
I rewounded it a bunch of times
because I tried to find like where they said it.
I saw where it was, and Pereira might have thought it was a tap because he said something afterward that he thought it was a tap. But what I saw happen was Cyborg had his outside hand on the mat while he was face down.
Yeah,
he picked that hand up, grabbed the shin, set it back down because he had off balance, grabbed the shin again.
Yeah.
And so there was like a 2-tap kind of situation.
It was like I'm moving and I'm coming up. Yeah.
He was trying to grab the shins. It to me, at least, from the angle that I could see it seemed pretty clear that he was trying to grab the shin, but he got a little off balance, so he set his hand back down on the mat, and then he went to grab it again, and that could have been...
That's a way that he defends that kind of stuff, where he puts and he pushes you over on it. So I didn't see it, and that was...
But it could have also screwed with the match a little bit, too, because if Pereira... feels that, thinks it's a tap, starts loosening. Yeah. Now you're not going to finish.
He's Cyborg. Yeah. Like, you have to put everything. You got to go through everything in order to get that guy to tap. And so, like, any little adjustment that you're going to give him, he's going to be able to make a mile with that. So
we end up, and then after that is Cyborg's like explosion baseball slide pass.
So go back, and I like this particular knee cut pass, and Cyborg does it in a way that you do not see heavyweights do it, just from an athletic feat alone. And because we know how good Pereira's guard is, with 2:41 left of the match is where that specific pass that I'm talking about is. And it is beautiful textbook of like a blast knee cut pass through. Cyborg actually gets his far side leg through on the pass, like through the legs in a way that you almost never see, especially with a guy as long as Pereira. So like the control he has on the inside thigh there is wild.
But the downfall with this pass is the reason that Cyborg doesn't finish it here, and that's that when you do these explosive knee slide passes, you don't really have control of your opponent's hips in a way where you can settle in and control them, and so you see a lot of from these explosions.
Because you're going to end up high when you throw it because you have to throw it hard enough to get over their leg and hips, and you can't usually throw it. You can't get through doing it like this and end up on their hip. You're gonna end up on their ribs or like on their into their like underarm and shoulder sometimes. And so he's not able to fully get the points on it, but it was just it was to the camera on the mat side footage.
It looked great.
And it looked great.
And what people are often looking for here is the back turn from these explosion passes. You see Tainan do it consistently and at an incredible level where he like slides through on these passes and is waiting for the back turn. And that's what Pereira does, and Cyborg tries to take the back, and Pereira's able to defend the back take attempt off of it, and so there's no points awarded. It was a really nice sweep attempt. I think ultimately if it weren't for those out of bounds points, I would have given the match to Pereira. I think his sub attempts were more... In
IBJJF, I would have given it to Cyborg because they value passing and upper positional dominance more if you are able to ever get close.
Well, what I'll say is I was more impressed with Pereira's jiu-jitsu
in every other rule set that we cover. This is pretty clearly for Gutenberg, by the way. But so it just is, this is sort of, again, we don't talk about this a whole lot. We cover so many different rule sets and look at a lot of different stuff that we can sort of pretty quickly go between all the rule sets for like what they're looking for. IBJJF is kind of the unique one because they are looking for really good guard work and really good like pass. That's kind of what they want. So they don't really value sub attempts. They do more than they used to, but
I was basing it more on the my thinking on I would give it to Pereira was more on the guard work than the actual sub attempts, because I thought that his guard play was very intelligent and his setups were incredible, and I think while Cyborg was attempting some passing, I think that he was equally on the defensive during that time, and the setups were coming from Pereira, and
he was countering off of them. I will say that the passing attempts that Cyborg put up were much closer to scoring than the sweep attempts that Pereira put up.
Fair.
And that tends in IBJJF to be the way that, and these historically have scored it, they are moving more towards valuing more of the submission-oriented close submissions than they have in the past. So we're kind of actually at like a change point where I need to go back and watch a lot of close matches to see nowadays how they're seeing it, because like 3 years ago I was really, really familiar with exactly what they were looking for. Nowadays we cover IBJJF for the majors, but we actually don't cover them kind of as much as we used to at the frequency because we cover so many other events that have different rule sets. So I need to go back and actually familiarize with what they're looking for. But very close match.
It was a close match.
Yeah,
it was
very, very good technique.
Really nice guard work and really nice like intelligent jiu-jitsu play.
Yeah.
I would, in particular,
we're seeing
Pereira,
more and more from Pereira. Like he is just consistently punching up. We saw a beautiful display from him ADCC trials. We're gonna see him at ADCC. Like I think he has finally made that switch to be, to be the guy in any division he enters. Yeah. On any given day, he can be the best guy in the world, and that's really cool to see him finally sort of get there and be so close.
Agreed.
Okay, on to the 3 closeouts, and then we have more
closeout, heavy closeout, medium heavy closeout.
Eric Moniz closes out with Marcus Scooby, and super heavyweight. Heavyweight, Mateus Diniz closes out with Dimitri Souza, and at medium heavy, we have Sebastian Rodriguez closing out with Manuel Hibamar.
Stupid.
Closeouts are stupid. Again, we do an amateur sport. It's unfortunate. We should be paying guys for these events at the black belt adult level because they are major events, and if you want to facilitate that being a professional organization. Here's my sideline. We covered ADCC last weekend. That's a professional tournament. Why? Because the guys got paid at it. Yeah, you had to enter it. You had to pay an entry fee to enter it. But if you won it, you got another entry to a bigger paid event, and you got paid for winning. And this is an amateur event.
Yeah,
it is unfortunate. And I'm like,
it's an amateur event done by professionals.
Yes, and it's odd. Yep. So closeouts, I understand why. Again, you're paying to compete, and there is no monetary victory. So why would I fight a guy that I am on the team with when we're doing it for free? Sure.
There's ways that IBJJF could facilitate this not happening by, say, putting teammates on the same side of the bracket.
Yeah,
second round, or not even that. Just make them in the semifinals. Make it valuable.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think it holds the sport back, and it kind of diminishes a lot of the prestige when you have 4 of the 18 divisions, 5 of them closing out. It's unfortunate. It is the way the sport runs right now, but I do like that other organizations are shying and pushing away from that.
Yep.
I think it legitimizes the sport more.
Yep.
Moving on.
Tainan and Garasi.
Middleweight. Tainan Daoprada defeats Jefferson Garasi via points 3-0.
Tainan. Man's passing is probably the best in gi jiu-jitsu right now. Best gi passing in jiu-jitsu right now, I think.
It is some of the most aesthetically. Again, he's a middleweight. There's a discussion there to be made with like the nuance of different kind of styles of passing. His passing looks amazing.
Honestly, I think
wild.
I think if we're talking about weight and styles, I think middleweight is the weight that I would look to say who's the best at middle. Because you have this interesting blend of the two, right? And so if we're talking about stylistically, and it's heavy and light.
Middleweights can kind of do it all because you're small enough where you're expected to be able to invert on a dime and twist through. You're also heavy enough to be like, hey, I might do absolute. I might have to crush a dude down and show him what's up. Yep. And so like you get that nice little shift. And I think Daoprada's a really good example of that.
I think that the more than it being aesthetically pleasing, I think that his technical ability to shift between. He's a mid-range passer, I think, but he has this ability to mid-range pass for so long that he sets up like a high-pressure pass and then moves through. And and his ability to finish with high or I don't really see him low-pressure passing much, but his ability to finish with those high-pressure passes that are set up so strongly by his mid-range passing is just incredible to me.
And that is the thing that I think is somewhat I don't use the words unique a lot. Somewhat unique about his game is that very few guys can change the distance that they are fighting in so frequently. Like a lot of people
fluidly.
Everyone fighting has the ability to do that at the black belt level, at the high level that we cover typically on the show. Daoprada does it with a routine and with a frequency that is unusual because he will start off like Toriano passing or outside passing or double under with the leg passing, and then he will move in seamlessly to like a close-in hip-on-hip passing that he'll follow you for, and then that doesn't work. He'll go back to like a long-range like X step-through pass.
And the most impressive thing for me with what you're saying is his ability to check back to longer ranges.
Without
guys
resetting. Like a lot of guys will do that and they will almost have this moment where they almost reset the position where it's like both guys go, okay, that pass didn't work, or that sweep didn't work. All right, we're gonna go back into the guard and we're gonna fight here. Daoprada never gives his opponents the ability to like get back into their preferred guard, get back under their hips are always still tilted up. Daoprada's always in the position to continue to put forward offensive passing on you in those spots, and he never lets that reset happen. And it's so interesting to watch because very few people are able to do like they can chain passing together, but Daoprada changed those transitions together in a weird, really fun way.
Yeah, and that's why I think he's in my eyes the best gi passer that we have in the sport right now. Is because of that ability to change distance so fluidly in all directions and keep people running. So in this particular match, Garassie pulls guard, starts playing lasso.
That was a thing we saw all week. We saw in like over half the finals matches.
Yeah,
someone
a lot of lasso.
And immediately go to lasso. Opponent would immediately grab the pants on the far side leg to prevent collar sleep, everything else.
Shin to
that
shin
gets,
is a big thing that you're preventing.
Yeah,
and
they
like,
get set up off of that. And then I did like how Daoprada, because he was the guy I was watching, because I was like, okay, everyone dealt with that this weekend. How does Daoprada deal with that? And Garassie did a great job inverting and stopping a lot of like the Toriando variations and like over variations that Tainan was trying to pass. And then but Tainan can't break this grip that Garassie has for a couple minutes, and then eventually I was like, okay, he's gonna break the grip somehow. Like, how is he gonna do it? And you see Daoprada just go, I'm done with this, and gets in and it gets really close and just deadlift grip breaks it. And I went, all right, sometimes you just gotta deadlift grip break it. But it was such a funny.
Sometimes you just gotta be the more athletic person.
There were 2 times when I looked and I was like, man, a lesser player that's not as good as Jefferson Garassie would be unable to hold this grip here. And the inversion through, just like not letting Daoprada get his hand back out. And Daoprada was like moving everywhere, like forcing Garassie to play like high on his hips and low on his hips and on his back and off his shoulders. And then just decides like, all right, I've exhausted all of like the fancy ways I can do this. I'm just gonna deadlift it out, and he just yanks it out. And I went, cool. That's how you have to do that.
Guess
sometimes.
that's it.
But it was a cool thing. Like I learned a technique there where it's like, all right, sometimes you just gotta like deadlift the guy out, and it's always cool to have like a takeaway, because lasso was such a prevalent thing this weekend. I think
it really was
more so than we've ever seen before. Probably. Everyone pulled lasso,
or at least
De La Riva.
Yeah, lasso, De La Riva, and then third on the list was some spider variants, but with the same like sleeve grip.
Correct. Yeah.
Extended spider. We saw a bit of that, which is it's interesting that we're going back to these like more what are now more traditional guards. You know, because
Zach, you remember when X guard was the new hotness?
The X guard was the new hotness when I was about to be blue belt. That was the thing that people were like, "Have you heard of this X guard?"
The X guard.
Yeah.
You're old, Zach.
Yeah, old people. I realized, so an aside, I had a friend in town this week, and we were just talking about jiu-jitsu in general.
He neon necked me during my gauntlet. It was a great day.
You literally told him to. Well, he can tell that later, but I heard you say it, because he was trying to be nice and give you a round off and just kind of like lay on top, and you go, no, fuck me up.
I don't think those were my exact words, but
it's what I heard.
But they might have been.
I think it was. But so he pointed out that I have now done jiu-jitsu for more than half my life. I started when I was 16. I am 34. I've been doing...
I'm getting close.
Yeah.
I'm close.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways...
and now we're sitting in a basement talking about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, about people younger and more athletic than me doing jiu-jitsu. So Tainan's doing all of his like more mid-range passing, a lot of mobility, a lot of tripoding, a lot of heavy shoulder pressure into the knees, and a lot of back step, long step mobility kind of stuff. And eventually he's able to I can't even. It's so hard to commentate on his passing because it's so mobile and so active, and he's doing so much. All I can say is he does Tainan kind of passing in those ranges, and then is able to force Garasi to show his back, right? Yeah, and then from there, we're able to like sort of pick up on what's happening. Garasi exposes his back, Tainan starts moving into it, and then eventually is like pressuring into Garassi's side, and Garasi takes the opportunity to take half guard, but Tainan is already high in, basically has the crossface already and has Garassi's back flat on the mat.
Super heavy shoulder pressure like on that position, because he's like waiting for him either to expose the back or to try to turn back down. It's like either way I kind of have you beat here for like whatever choice you make, I'm in a position to be able to react off it effectively.
Yeah. And so from there, from that crossface, we're just in like a high pressure passing scenario. He clears his half guard leg in the very traditional way from there. Gets his points in side control. Garassi's actually able to base out and tripod up at a certain point after that, like kind of very soon after the points are scored.
Yeah.
And then Tainan tries to jump the back, and we see what is very rare, Tainan not do what he wants to do, clearly. He gets a little high, falls forward, and then Garassi's free, but he's now down.
But he's in Tainan's guard now. But I thought it was funny that because of how the positions work, where it's like Tainan is on top, but then Garassi's defending a back attack, he can end it because there's no legs.
Yep.
And again, in ADCC, this would be 2 points for the person. But in IBJJF, there was no guard established, so it's just a reversal. There's no score. So Tainan gets to play from the guard for about, I think I have like 3:45, and there's about 2 minutes of, I think, and my note, chills from the guard.
Yeah,
after the turnover.
he was playing around, but I mean, he's clearly not trying to be offensive.
But you're up on
You're
points,
being
and it's
smart about
like
it.
you can keep the guy postured down. You can prevent a lot of offense there. And Gassari's working to kind of get out of that, but Tainan's very, very pleased to, slow the pace of the match down and prevent any sort of passing opportunities from happening.
And it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, that's how you win matches.
And he certainly put enough work in the first 7 minutes first 6 minutes for me to say.
Yeah, very, very fun match. If you want to watch some just like wild passing that you probably can't do.
Yeah, I can't for sure.
I try to do this, and then I realized like, no, this is a high level.
I don't have the cardio for that.
He wins that 3-0 and takes the middleweight. Under the lightweight division, we have Jonathan Alves defeating Andy Murasaki via 2-0.
The most activity I have seen out of Jonathan Alves in the first 2 minutes of a match in all of jiu-jitsu history.
I want to disagree with you, but I cannot think of a match where it happened. Yeah, so strategically, full disclosure. Usually when I watch Jonathan have a match, if I'm not watching it live, I will put him on. And I will look at the initial position that's established, and I will tab 3 minutes in.
Yeah. 3? I usually go to like 8.
3. And then I'll tab to 5, and then I'll tab to 7 because he starts to pick up the pace with about 2 to 3 minutes left.
It's a smart strategy.
It wins him high level matches. In this match,
he did not do that.
He immediately pulls, and I have it as a weird long leg, single leg X De La Riva variation. It's sort of like he has an underhook on the leg, and he goes to sort of like a weak De La Riva on one side and a foot on the hip on the other side, and immediately wrestles up and takes Murasaki down with like a single leg.
He actually did it twice, which was the craziest thing. He gets this De La Riva position. He wrestles up once, doesn't get it, drops back down, resets the position, does it again, gets it the second time on a wrestle up, and this was all in the first minute or so, minute and a half.
Before the first minute,
during the first
minute of the match, this is happening. And I'm like, all right, and
who is this?
It threw me off because, and I've seen matches before where Alves in the opening scramble will immediately get I'm out now, and I'm gonna mount for the rest of the match, and he will do that to guys, but
it's not common, and not in the finals.
We don't see it in the finals.
Yeah.
Usually in the finals, he is very
conservative,
conservative, and then late into the match when she's kind of worn on guys, he's figured out exactly what they want. Then he will open up. He will score his 2 or score his 3, whatever it is, and that is the match. So it was funny to see him immediately.
Yeah. I was happy about it. I prefer to see some action early on from him because he's an extremely talented player.
That a lot of times in the finals, for the stuff that we typically cover, we do not see a lot of the depth of his game have to be displayed because he is getting his 2. He's getting his score, and then that is the match.
Yeah. So he's on top in guard on top for a while. Murasaki's not able to pull too much together. Ends up sort of getting him off balance a little bit, and then they are on their feet a little bit, and they both get a stalling call for being on their feet and not doing anything, so it's a double penalty for that. Alves pulls guard, plays some single leg X outside.
He kind of tries to bowl a little bit there, and then they stall in the 50-50 hard until the end.
Yes.
Is my note.
Yep.
That was the match. Again, beautiful work by Alves at
really
the beginning
nice
of the match.
Get up sweep. Really nice wrestle up sweep.
We both keep kicking. The dog is directly under our feet, and we both just keep trying to put our feet there, and the dog's going, and he has an injured leg, so he's not going to move too much. I'm like, oh, okay, buddy.
He's okay.
Yeah. Again, Alves gets done as he usually does with with whatever score he needs, and then maintains the position that he has until the end of the match.
Brilliant jiu-jitsu.
Featherweight, we have Diego Sodre and Alexandro Sodre close out.
Yep.
Are they related?
I don't know. I thought, hey, I wonder if these guys are related, and then didn't look it up.
Maybe Maine will know, and then Maine goes, Zach, do you know?
Nope, do not.
Moving on, light featherweight division, we have Middleweight Alves defeating Lucas Pinheiro via points 7-2. Kind of one of the more higher scoring matches that
this
we
was
had.
one of the best light featherweight finals matches that I can remember.
They wrestled at the beginning.
A lot.
They wrestled at the beginning.
A lot.
And I went,
Pinheiro's wrestling, it didn't look like if I'm classifying it as wrestling. Was
Which
it
you
good?
did for a while, Zach.
Sure. I wasn't sure. But if I'm talking about it, was it very good wrestling in a traditional sense where we're talking about collegiate style wrestling with proper takedowns and things like that? No. But Was it incredible wrestling for jiu-jitsu? Yes.
It was in gi jiu-jitsu wrestling.
In gi jiu-jitsu especially. Because what he was doing was he was taking these like sort of long outside shots that might get you a takedown, might not. And then...
But I liked when he was doing it. He did it. He wasn't a bullshit shot.
No, they weren't bullshit shots.
He was in on the shot enough that it's like if Alves doesn't defend it right or doesn't respect it, doesn't get him hit down, like he is going, like Pinero's not looking to necessarily pull off of it. Pinero's looking to take you down. He'll do whatever he has to after he'll pull, he'll come back up.
He was going in for sure.
Yes.
But he was also doing it in a way where when Alves defended, he easily could scoot his butt in underneath and pull, but he wasn't just pulling to like a guard where he's going to settle in and be comfortable. He was pulling into sit-up guard.
Yeah.
And then sitting back up. So it was sort of like what we try to encourage, especially kids. This is like a big thing that you push, like shot, reshot. I mean, that's all the way through, but like it's hard to instill early. And so it was like a strangely jiu-jitsu version of a shot, reshot situation where he was shooting, then pulling a guard, and then sit up. And then like hit your sit-up sweeps,
and then he would do
which
it
is
again,
also still wrestling.
He would do it again. It was
really cool.
Yeah.
It was cool to see, and I really liked watching the stand-up here.
Again, having trained with Pinero before, like I really like his game. Like he has a really unique game, and he's a guy that tends to push a lot of action at the lower weights in a way that I really like enjoy. He tends to not just sit and stall in a position for a long period of time. He will tend to like be willing to fight you in all areas in a way that we don't see as much from the guys at light feather that are usually, that light feather and rooster, very, very happy to just double pull, and that is the game, and try to bolo each other. And Pinero, like, breaks the mold a little bit there.
Yeah. And so this goes on for a while.
There's 4 minutes is what I have show, like, it is a combination of snap downs, low shots.
And Alves wasn't just being defensive the whole time, too. He attempted a couple throws in there and, like, heavy snap downs and stuff.
It takes two guys in a match like this to make a really good match. Yeah. Like, Pinero doing this on himself, Alves could just pull and, like, stop all of that game.
Yeah.
But, you know, props to Alves. He was willing and engaging like Pinero and kind of doing the same thing, throwing his own takedowns and he gets really close, like
trip sweep,
like a trip sweep. Yeah, that he hit
not
off
a sweep. I guess. It would be. But
it was like a collar drag
outside trip situation. But it was right on the edge of the mat. He got 2 ads for it, I think, or I missed an ad, and then there was another.
A scoring thing that happened there, and that's where again one of the things weekend I was confused about because there was a score that was put up on the board directly after that exchange that I was confused about, and I went, something scored here. There's again, they've recently changed a couple years ago the IBJJF out of bounds rules, and they saw something about that would give Alves points for that sequence.
No, there was no points. It was ads for Alves.
Okay,
it was ads. But I think he might have got an ad for one thing and then got a second ad. I don't know, but there was a nice trip on the edge of the mat that ended up in ads for Alves.
Yeah.
Then as the match goes on, Pinero switches from like predominantly shooting and then trying to hit that sit-up guard to just pulling into that sit-up guard. So he's doing a thing where he posts his leg in like a very traditional I'm going to pull guard kind of way where he has like collar sleeve, posts a foot, sits down to an angle. But the way that he was doing it, he was dropping his butt on Alves' foot in the way that you want your butt to be on their foot for sit-up guard.
Yes.
And then he was immediately trying to sit up off of it. So it was like a pull sit up thing. And he tried it a couple times. And Alves was able to just defend the takedown portion. And then at a certain point, he does it one last time. But he's done it like 3 or 4 times in a row now. And Alves is like kind of onto him. And so what Alves does is as Pinero starts to reach up for the post foot to set the post to try to sit down to pull guard, Alves drags it by and ends up in like a lag drag kind of position off of this pull. And that's where things start to really, that's where he's able to start really mounting an offense. So he pulls this leg drag situation. Pinero takes his outside leg, his free leg, up over Alves' head to prevent the leg drag from happening, which is the normal way to defend.
Yeah.
Alves does the normal way to deal with that, which is change directions and post with your head and circle around the outside. And he ends up actually being able to get the pass off of that, settles into the pass, uses like nice, stable, firm jiu-jitsu to work himself into mount.
Yeah.
I
liked how he took mount too. He got like Pinero is trying to turn over almost into the turtle, and you have Alves just like keeping him there, and he rides the knee up on like the side of the ribs into the belly.
Yeah.
And he like holds the position there to prevent Pinero from being able to like rotate all the way over or come back down in order to slide that up into mount. Yeah. It was just a really, really controlled way to have like a high, like facing up knee on belly on someone like that, and it's just not something you see a whole lot. And the level of control you need to do that is nice, and it's something that, again, you see at the lower weight classes. It is not a style of control that you typically see. Actually, you not typically see it. You see it at the higher weight classes. You don't typically see it at the lower weight classes because guys are so scrambly. That position is so hard to control.
Yep.
And it's nice. It's, again, these guys play a game that I really favor and like. Again, I'm about that size, so it makes sense. But this is a knee on belly transition that I have worked a ton, and it is nice to see it effective at the high level. Like, oh, cool, that thing that I spent so much time working.
Hey, it works.
It works, in a Pans finals versus a guy like Pinheiro who has whooped my ass.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, so Pinheiro ends up winning 7-0 on this.
No.
I'm sorry, Alves ends up winning 7-0 on this.
7-2.
7-2.
Yeah, there was a turnover later.
Oh, okay.
Later in the match that Pinheiro was able to score off of, but again, Alves is up 7 for the mount and for the pass.
Okay.
So that's that
but
is all.
Man, was a good match. I loved watching Pinheiro, especially the first couple minutes. None of the things that he was doing ended up paying out in points, but I think it was really smart and really good jiu-jitsu, and
we're seeing more like as he progresses. New Watch keeps doing that. As he progresses, like, we're seeing more of him willing to do that, and we're seeing, like, it's no longer kind of a dummy shot or stuff, but he is comboing it together more than we have ever seen him do before, and I believe that he will probably continue to do that, and we will see that get better and better. And I'm excited for that progression. So again, Alves takes it, very clearly with that pass and with the mount there, but that first 4 minutes of the match was mostly Pinheiro on the defensive, and that was really interesting to see there. So moving on to the Roosterweight, Babito Oliveira defeating Taliesin Soares via points 4-2.
Yep. This was another really good match, and I think people that, if you listen to the show, you might be familiar with my preference for the upper weights at majors. I'm an upper weight guy.
Zach, what you about 245 right now?
No, I'm actually probably about 230, 35 right now.
Okay. About 148 right now.
Yeah,
it's great.
Solid 148.
Mm-hmm. Solid 148.
Solid.
About
to be 150 after all this.
I'm ready. I'm gonna be Jabba the Hutt. I'm ready for it.
So I have a preference for the upper weights in watching, both because I do it and because, like, the lower weights in my eyes tend to end up in these like 50-50 butt stuff matches, and I'm not a big fan of that. And again, probably because I don't do that very often, so it's not something that I can draw from. Right?
Again, we're enthusiasts with what we do in the show. I'm going to gravitate towards the jiu-jitsu I like watching, and more so the jiu-jitsu I like doing.
Yeah.
And so, like, if it's not your style of game, I think that's a totally fine approach to take. Like, I like watching certain types of matches better.
The changes that I've seen in these, like, in feather, light feather, and rooster for this Pans, I love. This is just exciting jiu-jitsu. It's interesting to watch. It's not stuff that I'm going to do, but things are moving in a way where I can say, okay, I can understand why these dynamics are working, and I can sort of analyze the positions and motions and movements and grips and things like that in a way that is functional. And I really loved watching the lighter weights this Pans, especially compared to some of the older ones, get back to like 2018-17.
We had a couple we covered that were just like, I think one of the titles of the shows was How 50-50 Ruined My Weekend.
Yes, yeah.
Is what I titled the show one week, because I think it was a major that we did that was
it might have been Pans 2020.
8 or 10 of the matches were like 50-50, and guys or women being unable to really get out of 50-50 effectively,
and this was just so different. And so one of the things that this was still a, we usually see the double pulls at feather, light feather, and rooster. We didn't see them at feather or light feather this time round. We did see the double pull at rooster here, which I think is going to always happen. But what I found interesting was that after this sort of lurching guard pull, it almost looked like Oliveira had always intended to come to top, and we've had this conversation before.
That was neat to see,
right? And so I think that there was a strategy here that he wanted the double pull, and he wanted to come to top to get the ad, which was something we've talked about once or twice before on the podcast. I think it might have been Euros this year. We saw it happen at maybe light feather or feather. But
it was, you're right. It was this year, and it was Euros.
It was this year. I think it was Euros.
We're seeing people
respect the ad more.
It's something that like Mo Jassam, the event coordinator for ADCC 2019 and 2022, talked about. If like ADCC, if you pull before the points period, there's no penalty for doing it. So a lot of like wrestlers are figuring out, oh, I'm gonna pull right before the points period, and then I'm gonna stand up in the points period, where now the guard player can't pull and has to wrestle me.
Fuck. Brilliant.
But again, and Agazarm figured it out, and
brilliant.
but now we're seeing that little more at the lower weights in IBJJF of if I want to be the top player, I can pull, I can force the double pull, and then I can come on top, and I can already be up and in the driver's seat, advantage-wise in the match if I am willing to play from that top position.
And an ad wins matches
at the highest level,
all the time. All the time. And so it seems like really smart.
I think it's really funny. I think we actually only have points in sub victories today. I don't think there's an ad win this time,
which is very rare.
Which is super rare. I don't
major. But
I don't remember a major that we have had in the recent past that didn't have one of the 18 finals matches via ad.
I can't say that that's 100% true. That this was all points or subs.
Yeah, Zach. That statement I'm making right now
might not be true. I think some of the females...
one of the female matches for middleweight was
an ad,
2-1 advantage,
but still far fewer than
and
we're
the
used
Gabby
to seeing.
Passanelli and Yana Suarez matches. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong, Zach. Maybe
far fewer than we're used
wrong.
to seeing, though, and I think the point still stands. So about this match in particular, we see that very interesting. Like Oliveira clearly wanted to take, at least to me, the top off the double pull.
Yes,
he wanted the ad. And I'm really wondering, since we talked about that at Euros, if this is sort of a little bit of a meta shift at the lower weights where the double pull is a thing that's still going to happen, but maybe not everyone wants to be the bottom guy.
I think we're seeing, and this is a unfounded statement, just something that I'm sort of seeing. We are seeing passers be less worried about the guard player before. We're seeing passers really willing to just lay into passes with disregard in a way that the guard players are having a harder time doing. People can pass now.
Yeah.
As opposed to at the lower weights, it was a race to the bottom because you're probably never going to pass, and the sweep is the only way that you're going to score. And so to score, you have to start on the bottom first. You can't start on the bottom last. And so now we're seeing a change in the meta for the passing, where passing is becoming a strategy that is actually, winnable on top, whereas previously, it just sort of wasn't for the last couple of years.
And so we see a lot of double under pass attempts from Oliveira on the top. Eventually, he attempts this sort of step over pass. He gets his hips really high and sort of tries to step through tornado pass kind of situation. That's not what he was actually doing, but he moves his leg in a step over kind of way, and what ends up happening is Thales...
He almost tries to do a step through pass.
Yeah.
A reverse step through pass.
Yeah. And then Thalison takes advantage of that high waist and tries to invert for a knee bar, and then they eventually settle in 50-50. And then we see Thalison rolling out of bounds to get a knee bar, and I don't know. This is a rules change that's useful and probably the right call, but they roll out of bounds. Thalison's going for the knee bar. Oliveira's going for the knee bar, and they roll out. It was definitely legit attempt on the submission. I think it could have been finished if they allowed it to play out of bounds. It had the potential to be finished.
Yeah, it definitely had the potential to be finished.
I don't think that Thalison was intentionally rolling out of bounds.
No,
but it doesn't matter.
For that defense of the knee bar, you have to
go that way.
For that, what Towson was doing for that defense, you have to go that way.
Yes.
You cannot go the other way. And so eventually, in that role, you move off the mat. Again, we need bigger mats at these major events because we have a lot of these things happening where it's a sub that maybe was going to finish, probably was not going to finish, because you have limited mat space, now ends up in scoring points. It just, you get into these sort of weird, odd situations where it's did I really see the best jiu-jitsu? I saw points get scored because something was out of bounds that may have been legit, may have not been legit.
And so I think it's fine though. Oliveira gets the 2 points for the out of bounds motion. Then they go back to center stand up, 2 double guard pulls. Thalison got the penalty for the out of bounds though on top of the points. And so now we're in a situation where Thalison's up to 2 penalties to Oliveira's 1.
Yeah.
And so on that double guard pull, he has to come to top.
Yes, because
or else he could be DQ'd.
No. You'll give
points.
2 points to your opponent. So in IBJJF, first one's warning. Second one is an advantage to your opponent. Third one is 2 points to your opponent. Fourth one is a disqualification.
Yeah.
If you if you double pull or stall, or like it's the amount of penalties that you can get. But basically, if you both double guard pull, you have 20 seconds for someone to come to top. If no one comes to top, they basically go, stop, you're bullshitting us here. Come up, they stand them both up, they give a penalty for each. And so because Suarez has more penalties there, he does not have the opportunity. He is required to come to top, and he can't play that game because you're in an even match. You can't give up points to your opponent.
Yep. And so Thaleson ends up on top. Oliveira, there is a sweep exchange here that is just awesome. So Thaleson's on top. Oliveira's in just an open guard situation, but he's got both sleeves. So I loved this whole sequence. I think it was one of those, my favorite parts of jiu-jitsu are when you can clearly see the progression of thought. I could go to a class. I mean, this isn't something that I would necessarily do myself, but like I could look at this, I could go to a class, I could teach someone how to do this, and I can say, you set this up by doing this. You get these grips, you do this motion, you get them to respond this way. When they respond this way, you do this next thing, and you can see it here. Oliveira gets the double sleeve grips. He's got his legs wide, and Thaleson has the sort of 1 foot on the mat, knee up, and 1 knee down kind of situation. Oliveira does this really interesting thing where he takes both those sleeve grips and he just sits up. And he sits up and brings his hands in the air like he's cheering. And what that does is it forces Thaleson to like sit himself up as well because his arms are going up, right? Yes. And so Thaleson sits his weight back on the knee that's on the mat and sits his chest up. When he does that, Oliveira is able to take the outside foot that's free and hook it in under the leg that Thaleson has the foot on the mat. So he essentially just pulls in a De La Riva hook from this like sit-up thing. But then he's also sitting up, so then he's able to pull Thaleson back down really heavy.
But now he has the De La Riva hook on that side, so he can elevate her up.
And then, so he racks Thaleson's weight on. He loads up the weight onto that De La Riva hook. And then the finish of this sweep was really brilliant too. So not only does he load him up with this like nice exchange of events, and he pulls the 2 sleeves back, but then right before he goes for the submission, once he has Thaleson's weight fully, once he goes for the sweep and he has Thaleson's weight loaded fully on that De La Riva hook, he takes the hand that's on the same side as the De La Riva hook, and instead of keeping it up where it is, he shoves it down into his hip pocket. And so what that's going to do is if he holds it up, Thaleson's going to be able to post on that hand and it's going to make the sweep hard. So at the last second, he takes that grip and he shoves it down into his own hip pocket, so that takes the base that Thaleson has out of the way. He kicks his leg over with the De La Riva and finishes the sweep. And it's just, it's such a beautiful progression of events.
This is a textbook De La Riva balloon sweep.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because
so nicely done.
Like you learn. It's killing me because when I watched this, I was like, this happened in another major final, and I cannot remember. It wasn't Worlds, but I cannot remember what it was because you don't see balloon sweeps very often at the highest level, and so but the De La Riva balloon sweep is like typically when you see it, that's how guys are setting up because no one's going to give you both feet in the hips. They can sprawl their hips off, so you need to have that leg snaked in to control that leg and to control their hips.
And it also turns their hips so that the hip hits the mat first, and you don't have the opportunity to move your own hips to defend.
It was just such a beautiful sweep to take him over.
So nice.
That's the second 2, so match ends 4-2 on that balloon sweep. There's the final 2 matches, there's some attacks back and forth, but that's essentially the match. Really, really cool. Again, loved it. This has been some of the better. The matches that we did get in the men's divisions, we didn't get 4 of the 9, unfortunately, but
4 of my favorite weights.
Yeah,
but.
Look, we got an absolute. We got an absolute.
That's the big thing. But also, it was nice this time that the weights that I typically am less interested in or less excited about were really exciting matches this time. So, despite having a lot of closeouts this time round, I was very satisfied with the matches that we did get in the finals.
I am happy, and I hope this sort of speaks to kind of a larger meta shift that we're seeing. We're seeing a larger level of aggression in a lot of these matches. And people willing not to take more risks, but to push the action and to push forward more versus before we had a lot of, I'm happy to stalemate in this position until the last 30 seconds, and then we will both go. Yeah. We saw a lot more good jiu-jitsu. So that does it for the men's divisions. On to the female divisions. Zach, I have mine in a weird order. What do you want to start with first?
Let's start with the absolute because that's a good place to start, but then we can go all the way back down to the lower weights if you prefer.
Absolute. We have Gabby Pisana defeating Yana Suarez via advantage.
It's probably worth talking about these 2 together because Gabby and Yara were both the absolute and the super heavy final.
Super heavy or...
I'm sorry. ultra, or no, it's super.
Is it?
Yeah, it's super heavy. There's no ultra heavy for women's. It's just super.
Yeah, super heavy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Gabby Pisana and Yara Soares.
They've met a lot. We've covered them in the last couple of majors.
I went and checked. Oh yeah, it's right here. So I went and checked because I was like, man, I have seen these two fight way too many times, and I was just curious. So I went and looked at their records. They have had, in the past 3 years, they have had 17 matches.
Yep.
And Gabby, after these ones,
yep.
after these two,
she wins both.
She wins both these. After these two, Gabby is 14-3 against Yara.
Yeah.
And these are like every Pans, World, and Euro finals.
Most of the big
we
majors.
See 2 matches. They meet at super heavy and they meet in the absolute.
Yep.
And Gabby wins both of them often.
Yeah.
And that's not to say anything is wrong about this happening. It's just, it's extremely evident that at the upper weights, these two women are absolutely dominant.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's why you see in the finals. And again, the women's weight classes at the upper weights are also like typically the smaller weight classes. The less numerous entrants into the sport there.
Yeah.
And so these women, I think so. In thinking about this, again, Pisana wins both of these. It is funny that we now have a very dominant female heavyweight absolute person, also named Gabby.
Yeah, right.
I thought it was very funny. Gabby Garcia,
Gabby to the next.
Gabby Garcia kind of faces at a gi, kind of just does no gi.
Yeah.
Dominant for years and years and years, and now we have Pisana coming in, Gabby Pisana, to take the Gabby crown of women's heavyweight and absolute jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So for the farm notes, they're in 2 opposite sides of my notes here, which is great. The absolute final, again, 2 advantages, very close match.
Yep. This was Gabby. Gabby pulls guard, comes to top. Oh, I'm sorry. Gabby comes to top after a guard pull. Yara gets.
That's the first advantage.
Yeah, that's the first advantage. Yara is actually playing in 50-50 a little bit, and she gets Gabby's hip to the mat, which is something that she doesn't do very often. Like it was really. It looked like she was good for the 50-50 sweep, right?
Yes.
They're in 50-50.
And I was curious.
Gabby comes to the top.
Is she going to be able to get under and get her turned over?
Right.
All the way.
It looked like then Yara and Gabby sat in 50-50 and Yara made what it seemed like. I mean, it's hard to tell because things are really entangled there, but it looked like Yara was just not even interested in getting the sweep. Like she didn't seem to make any effort to come to top and just collect those 2 points for getting Gabby's hip to the mat.
What I saw here was we had 2 sets of grips. They were in like a weird, like very crunched in 50-50.
They were.
So this position is weird because it's that 50-50 that first person to go loses.
Yeah.
Where if Yara begins to turn her hips out to come up, Gabby can turn her down and start to pass and take top position. If Gabby comes out first, Yara can turn Gabby's hips down onto the mat because you can use momentum and swing them through and come up and get her 2 for top.
Yeah.
And so they both sat there for it's like 4 or 5 minutes or something like that.
But also,
in
I
this
think
position,
when you see this, when I, again, 50-50 is not a position that I play a ton.
so
right?
it's also when you openly don't like on the show.
Yeah. Well,
Ingi.
That's not. I mean, I'm not hating on them being in the position at all now.
No.
It's just what I'm saying is that I think a lot of times it's not a position I play a lot, but a lot of times watching the position at very high levels, if the person gets that hip bump and now we're both down to like a flat 50-50, a lot of times you see the person on the bottom making strides to get that leg that's sort of caught underneath that they're eventually going to base out on, the outside leg. Yeah. A lot of times you see people starting at least to try to turn their hips away from that leg toward that leg into a place where they can sit in and
they can sit on the other leg and get up onto the leg to come up.
Because if you just get onto the knee, you get 2 points essentially, right? And so you see a lot of people trying to work their hips into that place, and Yara was it just didn't look like she was trying to make that.
Both of them were doing that. Like both of them kind of sat in that position, unwilling to be the first to have to commit to that hip position.
But I think in this particular case, Gabby has not much of advantage to do that, right? It's better for Gabby to wait for Yara to do it because then she can start.
Right.
If Yara is able to come to top from there, she gets those 2 points.
Yes.
If Gabby's able to come to top from there, it's just exactly the same thing, which is eventually what happens. Gabby does eventually come to top and start passing, but it was just seemed a little odd to me that it didn't feel like Yara wanted Maybe she did. Maybe she did, and it was just I'm missing grips.
I saw it as a stalemate where it's like first to go loses, and at the highest levels, you're not going to be. I'm not going to give it up. So it's like I'm going to sit here, and it's a battle of wills. Either the ref calls us, but I looked at that and went, I have been stuck in this position before, and I know exactly, like, I have lost this in the room because I got bored. Yeah. And neither of them were going to do that. And that's what I saw there. Yeah, and you might have something differently, but no.
It's completely possible that that's what was happening, and I wouldn't doubt it at all.
Pasana wins that by 2 points in the super heavyweight division.
This one was a little more active.
Yeah, you had 4. It was a 4-0. Yeah. Here for Gabby. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Essentially, scissor. She hits a nice leg scissor initially.
Really nice leg scissor.
It was off a really interesting position. It was like because Yara was still standing.
Yep.
And Gabby basically puts the foot on the hip and then chops with the outside leg. Like usually do it from like the guard, but does it with the great good positioning on the arms and the hands, on the collar and the sleeve. So Yara's sort of forced to come over into the guard and then sweeps her over.
I actually have it in my notes as just it's basically just a traditional reap sweep.
Yeah, that's the way to put it. I was like, what's the name for this?
Yeah, it's essentially just and it's not like textbook in a way where everything was played out nicely. Like Yara was defending actively and moving around, and Gabby found a good time to hit the reap, and but effectively in terms of motion, it was a reap sweep, and it was well placed, well timed, and it looked really nice.
Yeah, it was good. That's how she gets the first 2.
Yep.
And then
the second one is sort of a takedown sort of kind of situation. There's
it's like a single
Yara
leg.
bases out and Gabby stands up into a single leg and then gets her back down.
There was I actually looked at this and I was kind of confused why she got points for it, because I was like, Gabby is on top and then she is coming up to sort of trying to kind of pass, but really blocking a sweep here from Yara.
Yep.
And then she gets a single leg, they walk it out, and then
I think
they come back down, and they must have, again, in ADCC scoring versus IBJJF scoring, I had to change my kind of thought process, but they must have seen that they were in a standing position for long enough that was seen as a neutral standing position.
I think it was because Gabby didn't come up holding the single. It was...
Did she not?
No, unless I took notes wrong or I'm remembering wrong.
I remember her coming up with...
Yara based out, and then when Yara based out, she pressured in to get the single. It wasn't like there was a both feet on the ground shot situation. It was sort of scrambly.
Yeah.
But both of Gabby's feet were on the ground before she picked up the leg, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I think it was just that this was... both of Yara's feet were on the ground, and that's why it was sort of a neutral position. And then,
because the only way that you would score here is that if you see this as a neutral standing position, and then Gabby takes her down and then scores, which is what happened. But in my eyes, for how I was watching this, I was going, it looked like blocking a sweep attempt, and then you are the top player, and then you put the bottom player back down as the bottom player, so you wouldn't score there.
Yara turned and based and had 2 knees on the mat, and when she had 2 knees on the mat, Gabby grabbed the far pant leg and then started pressuring in with the far pant leg. Yara stood up with the inside foot and got that foot on the mat, then kicked the other foot out. And while she kicked the other foot out, Gabby was able to pick up the close foot. The first one that hit the mat, the one that she didn't have the grip on, she was able to pick that up into a single. So there was like a brief minute where Gabby was holding the back pant leg, didn't have the single yet, and Yara's feet were both on the mat.
And even in that situation, you're fighting a downed, turtled opponent, or
no, it was both feet were on the mat at a certain point before.
Oh, okay. So if she was both feet and there's no other part of her body on the mat, then
she's up.
It's up. So I missed that. Yeah. I saw it as I missed the both feet on the mat. If it's both feet on the mat, very clearly
that's
then
what happened.
It's 2. Well, that's obviously what happened. That's what scored.
Well, yeah, it scored at least.
So that's obviously you saw it correctly, and I missed that. But that's kind of what my confusion was. Is I missed the Yara's feet.
It was a very fine line kind of situation. Look, and also if they didn't score it, I wouldn't have ever thought about it.
Yeah, but I do appreciate that, again, they're sticking to the scoring criteria, which is like if you do stand and only the balls of your feet are resting on the mat, then you are standing.
Yeah.
And then if your opponent is also in that position,
then you're neutral.
You're standing. So again, the way I saw it, I wouldn't have scored it because of my understanding of how the IBJJF scores sweeps and takedowns, because it would still be in the continuous motion of defending either.
It was close in my eyes, but
But again, it wouldn't have changed the result, so I do like when that happens, unfortunately. But Gabby does take this via 4-2 over Suarez. Where do you want to go next? You want to start with medium heavy, or you want to go down from Rooster? My notes are all cacophony and out of order. So
I got them in order. Let's just keep going from the top, from the heavyweights. So we'll go Striker versus Grindotti.
Who?
Heavy Striker.
Melissa Couto.
Yeah.
Versus defeats Maggie Grindotti via choke.
Melissa Striker.
Do you have her?
I have her Striker. I think that's what they're calling her on the Flow Zone.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I just pulled the names. I watched the mat side footage.
It's Melissa Striker Couto.
Couto. Yeah.
Couto. I think they were calling her Striker on the.
Let's call her Melissa.
Melissa.
Or whatever.
We'll call her Melissa.
Versus Maggie Grindotti. Wins a choke via really, really late into the match. They have it as 9:22 when I pulled everything.
Yeah,
from
it was
Flow
late.
When I was looking.
Melissa was in charge of this match the whole time.
And this is what I talked about earlier with Cyborg, and then Grindotti working the San Paulo pass, but she's doing it, and she's unable to open up Melissa's guard because women have very, very strong guards. They have a degree of flexibility that you typically don't see in the men's divisions, especially at the heavier weights. And she's just kind of unable to get this pass working effectively because the guard is closed. And Melissa's very, very diligent about keeping the guard closed during this passing attempt.
Yeah. And so that wasn't playing out for her. She is aggressively moving forward, but Striker's also, in addition to just dealing with that, the San Paulo pass by keeping her guard closed, she's chaining different guards together pretty quickly and keeping Maggie moving and defensive and not able to really settle into a position to start to try to pass well.
Grindotti keeps having to regain her posture.
Yes.
And keep having to push in, posture back up, get up until begin to work the style. In the San Paulo pass, you have to do it from a very high upright posture where no one's hanging on your head to be able to get everything. So and Melissa keeps forcing Grindotti to have to reset to get back to where she kind of wants to start passing to do this.
And you really need a slow grind of developing momentum to hit some of those low, San Paulo pass in particular. You need to stabilize the position in every little tiny movement and step. And eventually through all this chaos of Striker or Melissa, we're calling her Melissa, with all the chaos of Melissa keeping these active guards, we end up in a half guard situation, right? Yeah. Melissa's got the far pant, the outside pant leg, and Grindotti, I don't know if she was actually reaching into the bottom leg or if Melissa was fished it in, but she ended up getting the inside leg with the lasso.
Yeah.
Right? And I have in my notes, you need to remember to play with this because I am very unsuccessful at hitting, and it's when I'm against guys with at bigger weights, I think this is a harder sweep to hit. That sort of tilt sweep with the lasso from half guard, right? So you're always told, don't reach in and grab the bottom pant leg because then they're going to grab your own sleeve and then tilt sweep you out,
you're
right?
You're going to beat you with the same thing you're trying to do them.
Yeah. And so I've been hit with that sweep before. I know that it's an effective thing. I often try to do it, and it's not as effective for me. And I think a lot of times, I get these guys that are really heavy and pressuring forward, and it hurts my knee. And so I'm like, oh, this doesn't work. Melissa here does that tilt sweep, but she's got that outside pant leg, which is something that I personally grab all the time. Yeah. And what she did was after she got that first little bump on the tilt, she turned her body into the pant grip. Yeah, sorry, I'm moving and also
Zach's moving a lot here, and he's going away from the mic.
So she turns her body into that pant grip that she has, and in a way where she's able to punch it to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then that's where the sweep actually comes from. So she just gets enough off balance from the tilt, the lasso tilt sweep, to get Maggie kind of leaning in that direction, pull a little bit of weight off the knee that's on the mat, and then she takes that little bit of weight that's off the knee and follows through by punching it up to the ceiling.
She kind of explodes up and lifts
really
everything
nice
up.
Sweep. And I think that that last little punch thing is valuable, and I'm going to play around with that for myself and see if that works. It was a really nice technique to hit that first sweep. And then
she's on top and really just pressures the knees together and just kind of grinds her way and crawls up into mount.
Yep.
And I don't really have much. She really just, I was surprised at how long she was able to hold that grindy knee position, because like she doesn't ever overextend her to let Maggie retain the guard or do anything else. She just kind of holds and like waits and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls. Eventually, kind of in the last moment, pulls forward and she's in mount, and then she's in a. Am I wrong there?
I think she. So this ends. I don't think. No, she didn't get to mount. This one ends after a bit of a scramble. It was there was a sort of a sit-up sweep situation. There's a weird scramble.
Yeah, the back.
Maggie kind of dropped into guard, but there was a lot of space, and then rolled forward. Like sort of tried to base out, and
I mixed it up with the Anna Rodriguez.
Yeah, that sounds like Anna Rodriguez's finish.
I was like, that was that finish. Like, no, wrong match, Maine. Been a long weekend.
No, couple down. But so Maggie ends up basing out, and Melissa jumps on her back. Maggie does a really nice job blocking the second hook from coming in.
Yeah,
but
because she uses her hand to do it.
Yeah, Melissa works in the collar grip, and then proceeds to finish the bow and arrow without ever getting the second hook in.
Yeah,
and so it's the last like 5 to 20 seconds that she's able to finish the bow and arrow. And she was up on, I think she was up 4 points for 2 sweeps, anyways.
Really nice, kind of modified, really like a short, not a short arm bow and arrow, but like does not have to turn the angle huge to get it. Grandotti's kind of middle chest height when she finishes, and it's a nice bow and arrow because it doesn't involve all of that movement across. It's much more of like a collar lapel choke than like a traditional bow and arrow, which is like almost like your forearm pulling across to pull the lapel over. It's almost like down to finish this one. It was
a
really nice little collar choke. Not the match that I was in my head at that point.
But still a really wonderful finish. And we'll get to talk about the finish that you were talking about in a couple matches.
We will. Medium heavyweight, we had Maria Meliasik defeating Essardo Christina Silva via. This is I know this is an Imanari choke. It's not technically an Imanari choke.
I just wrote it. I have it written down as cross collar.
It's a cross collar, but it's from the
crucifix.
It's from the omoplata crucifix.
Yeah. This finish was so not just the finish. There was both. There was a short match.
Flo called this chocoplata, and I'm like, this has a name, by the way. Like,
I don't call it that. I won't. No. I refuse to call it that.
It's not. What's not that it has a name.
Yeah.
It's an Imanari. It's an Imanari with a collar choke.
Sure.
Keep going, Zach. Sorry.
But so this was a really good match overall. Meliasik, we'll talk about the finish most, but Meliasik hits a really nice guard entry, grabs De La Riva beautifully.
It's like an inside X variation of it that hits the initial sweep.
Well, it's interesting that you're saying that because this is just the traditional deep De La Riva. Like, this is the way that you were taught De La Riva.
Long leg De La Riva, not deep X. Yeah. Long leg De La Riva sweep.
It's just.
I was like, that's a long leg X. It's like, nope.
That's just De La Riva.
Regular ass De La Riva.
I can't even call you a fuck. I normally would be like, you fucking purple belts and your new wave bullshit. Just call it its original thing. But I can't even say that anymore.
It's a long leg X guard.
Yeah, it's just a De La Riva. So she gets the deep De La Riva with the leg all the way across the hips, foot on the far hip, and then is able to load Isidora up onto that hook and hit the sweep with it. It's a very traditional sweep. Really nice work from this De La Riva sweep. And then Isidora actually is able to respond right away by entering into single leg X almost as soon as they hit the mat, and then hits what is now a traditional single leg X sweep, just like the simple bump sweep. But as she comes up, Meliasik does a nice little job giving her just a tiny little yank and push, and what it forces Isidora to do is base out with her hand on the mat.
Yeah.
Meliasik jumps up to a triangle, and then this incredible series of events follows. She gets sort of a loose triangle.
This is the highlight you've seen from this weekend for the finals on Instagram and everywhere else.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope you've seen it because it's awesome. And if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. So she gets this sort of loose triangle, then starts tightening the triangle up. Then she moves to a topside triangle. Then she moves into a straight arm lock, sort of. She was thinking about it for a minute. I
almost thought she was going to go like a Barato Plata or something.
Yeah.
Like with the angle that she was cutting, because it's not something that you typically see people make an off angle like that from mount.
I do it for like the straight arm lock is what I thought she was going for. But either way, she bails on that pretty quickly, turns her hips in underneath and transitions it into an omoplata. And then from the omoplata, she transitions into the crucifix, grabs the cross collar choke, and finishes with...
So it's funny. I had an interview with Esteban Martinez in ADCC, and after the interview we spent like 20-30 minutes like probably just talking.
Yeah.
And he showed me his entire like crucifix game, and this transition is in that game, and I was like, oh yeah, this one just showed me like how he does this, and I'm like, and like walked me through the choke, and I was like, that's awesome to see like on the weekend before have like a high level guy show you that on a casino floor. And then you see it like in a women's final match.
Yeah, that's
the
awesome.
next weekend. It was like that was cool.
But all those transitions, Meliasik she's absolutely incredible.
I thought,
super dominant player always, but man,
whenever
those
you
transitions
see this
were great.
finished in nogi, you see the omoplata with the crucifix there. You see people reach over hand, and they have to finish the choke with like the backside of your hand like that. That's how you finish it. You reach up and you kind of pull back, like.
It's almost like an arm triangle ends up being because you're pulling the neck into the shoulder a little bit.
Kind of, but you do it with like the back. You choke them with like a guillotine grip with the front of your hands. Yeah. And this, Maria doesn't have to do that. She gets the collar choke and she comes and she just pulls the collar across instead of needing to do it kind of an Imanari choke finish, but it sets up the exact same way, just with a collar choke instead of with the hand over hand Imanari grip.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome finish. Great match. Yeah. It was nice tech. It was a lot of nice technique in a very short period of time.
Yes.
And it wasn't that it was all Meliasik. It wasn't very one-sided.
There was also
Isidora had a great...
there was also a ton of defense here. Like Isidora, they spent probably a minute or 2 minutes with Isidora trying to basically back roll out of this. And Meliasik did a great job just very slowly crawling her hand up to get that collar to eventually get over. It was an attritive finish because Isidora did so much to try to get out, and Meliasik was just diligent and waited and crawled to get it.
Yep, great match.
Middleweight finals, we have Tamara Fajeda defeating Chloe McNally via advantage. It was 2-1 with the advantage, the second advantage. My note for this match is inside pant grip.
Yeah, there was really no clear winner here. It was a lot of 50-50 stuff.
Very close match.
Very close match. In the end, there were some scrambles. And Chloe McNally, in the last 5 seconds, reaches down, grabs Tamara's pants with 4 fingers inside for a split second.
Really, like I was surprised that they issued the penalty as quickly as they did.
They saw it, right? I mean, it was probably a corner judge that saw it and issued it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It was also right in the front of the ref too, so it could have been either of them. I don't know who caught it first, but I was kind of surprised. Like, man, I don't think she had the grip that long.
Yeah, it was enough to get the penalty, and I don't know if it made an impact. You know, I think I actually watched this one with the flow zone, and the commentators were saying, "Oh, well, Tamara was actively trying to pass, and that inside pant grip definitely stopped her from passing, and so it's a good win because she probably would have passed anyways." And so maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I don't know. Either way, there's the penalty for that, and that's what wins the match for Tamara.
Yeah. That is the middleweights. On to the lightweights. We had Natalie Ribeiro defeating Fionn Davies via points. 2 points. Yep. Very, very close match.
Yeah. Right towards the middle of the match, I think. Natalie...
This is another match. I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
No, please.
Totally going to. It's again another immediate pull to lasso.
Yep.
Like we saw, that was just almost every match that pulled. We saw, aside from a couple of them.
Was she? I don't think Natalie was playing lasso. I think she was playing mostly spider. So she had the sleeve grip, but was she switching back and forth?
Spider, but at the beginning it's lasso because I watched Fionn deal with this in a very similar way that we saw Daoprada deal with it. And like she does the deadlift, but she does, instead of breaking grip with it, because women there's like a strength for hand grip thing with women. And so Fionn basically tries to deadlift past her off of that grip instead of breaking the grip with it. It was really interesting. She actually lifts up Ribeiro to try to basically get that to work. Yeah. And it was I was like, oh, look at that. Like the same technique, just used differently because we've seen so much lasso. Like I really keyed into like how are the high level people like addressing lasso, and they're all addressing it. There's only a couple of ways you can address certain guards at the high level, and that it's funny to see Fionn using the deadlift. Like, hey, either the grip breaks or I start to expose your back for this pass here, and it was just interesting to see that.
So Natalie does transition to a spider at some point, and then almost hits the traditional spider tilt sweep early. Fionn's able to recover at the last second, and Natalia gets the ad for it, but then they're back into the same guard, back into the same like cycle of Fian trying to pass through these like outside passing motions, and then what Fian ends up doing though is sitting in this situation where she's sort of not tripod passing necessarily, but she's very chest forward, because what she's trying to do, I think, is start in these low squat positions and then explode up and pass through the legs that way.
And so an explosive kind of like Toriando to the side, but she wants to be
coming from underneath.
She wants to get Habero, like almost like you're gonna do the what's the flip pass? What's that thing? We have the back of the skirt and you just rip them up and you almost force them to turtle over under themselves.
And so that she's in position to do those sorts of passes, but to be in that position where you're going to explode up, you actually have to have your chest forward a little bit, because if you're sitting back on your hips where you're stable, then when you explode up, your angle on your explosion is not correct.
And you have to have your chest in front of your hips,
chest forward in front of your hips. Yeah. And so like that's the position you need to be in to execute these explosion sweeps, but that's also a great position to hit people with these tilt sweeps, right? Because you want in order to hit these like spider tilt sweeps,
for them to do that.
Yes, you need the weight forward, and so Fian was basically just in position to be hit with these. Not that it's wrong. It's certainly like an excellent way to do this, but Natalia was able to
I am trying to pass in this certain way. If you can counter me with the thing that counters the thing I'm doing, like we're doing jiu-jitsu in the guard.
Exactly what Natalia did. She hits the sweep this time, gets her points for it, and those points ride out for the end of the match. But it was really, really intelligent jiu-jitsu on Natalia's part. She
really just keeps Fian down, and then eventually towards the end of the match, Fian tries to wrestle up in sort of a last-ditch effort. But Habero just does a great job of shutting it down, preventing Fian from able to and it seemed Fian was a little tired at the end, just wasn't able to continue to drive through, and Habero was able to shut it down and stop it and prevent any points from being scored. And that 2-point spider guard kind of variation, De La Riva spider guard, just wins her the match.
It was great.
It was a great final. On to the featherweights, we have Ana Rodriguez defeating Amanda Montero via this is the match I was talking about. A mounted collar choke, kind of late in the match as well. X choke from Mount. What's up, Hodger?
Mount. Yeah, it fucking works.
And honestly, this whole sequence that leads to it is very Hodger-esque, and just very slow grind through the guard.
She starts with the tripod pressure passing, eventually moves. And settles into a low pressure pass, climbs to 3/4 mount,
and spends a while. And what I talked about in the early match that was wrong. Spends a while climbing, and slowly, just locking on the legs. The entire time she prevents Amanda Montero from opening her legs at all to get any sort of butterfly guard or hook in or establish any sort of half guard. She's just stuck in this low sort of half weave, half drag pass. And Ana Rodriguez just continues to climb up until eventually, I forget, there was probably 2 minutes left, 3 minutes left in the match. She climbs 3 minutes left in the match.
Lands in a mount.
Climbs in a mount, and then...
Well, even from mount, I think that the progression of technique here was really interesting. She starts stabilizing mount, right? And then when she starts really going for the submission, what she does is she brings her hips high, higher than I would normally suggest someone put their hips on the mount. But she does... She also takes both of her feet, crosses her feet underneath Amanda's back, right? Small of the back.
I jammed my toes in December in a competition doing this.
Great way to fuck up your own ankles, but it's also extremely effective.
I kept mount for all 10 points.
Sure, yeah.
And it was great, but my toes, that was December. It is middle April now. That toe is still jammed because he bucked and I landed on it, and every time I see someone do it, I'm like... You'll win, but it'll hurt.
Yeah. And in the finals of Pans, fine. Whatever. I'll take it. Yeah. So Ana Rodriguez crosses her feet underneath Amanda's butt, which stops the bridge from happening, and it allows you to bring your hips up high. What bringing your hips up high allows you to do is really focus on using your hands to open up the collars and get that in without having to worry too much about
basing on your head.
Yes.
If you get really bumped forward.
She didn't, but you can. It's a nice way to deal with it.
It gives you that option of if I need to, I can stop it with my face.
Right, and you're also in a position where you keep their hips off the mat with your feet, and so they can't use their hips to move laterally.
You're taking 6 or 8 inches at least of that bridge out as well.
Yeah, you're locking that down, but then also you're pinning the chest to the shoulder blades to the mat firmly by bringing your hips up so high. And so the shoulder blades have to stay on the mat, the butt has to stay off the mat, and it makes it really difficult to really mount any defense.
You have these weird little kind of bucks that you can do, but you're doing with like your back and like
not super effective.
Your like middle shoulder kind of. You can like you can't do a whole lot without really needing to overcommit. And it's very hard to turn someone over in that, so they have a lot of time. It's getting hard to why Hodger used a very similar. Hodger used a little bit of different mount.
A little bit different mount, but
why he used that really high crushing mount, because it gives you a lot of time to work the X choke, the cross collars mount. Like you have the time because you have the control there.
Yep. And so she takes that time. She sets up the cross.
And it's a couple minutes of her setting that up too. Eventually gets it.
Gets the X choke
with about a minute left in the match.
Yep.
Great technique, fun to see. Moving on to light featherweight, we have Jessica Khan defeating. This is a name that I'm struggling with. Thamares Aquino.
De Aquino, I think. Yeah. Thamares. We're gonna say Thamares and hope that that's at least reasonably close.
Mm-hmm. No, they're very, very close match. Khan takes this 2-0.
Yep. Double guard pull. Thamares comes to top for the second one to get the ad. We end up in 50-50. Jess is playing outside Ashi 50-50. And she hits a nice sweep from this. It's sort of just a little bit of a kick sweep, but I think that is worth talking about conceptually, because this is a thing that we see. We don't really see this done from people from 50-50 a lot.
No.
And
it was kind of 50. It was kind of single leg X 50-50. It wasn't like she wasn't super deep.
Well, it started in the 50-50.
Yeah.
And then what she did was so they were both butts on the mat, but Thamares wasn't really gripping the inside leg, right? So there's a version of 50-50 where one person is holding that inside leg tightly so that you can't pull it out. And this is not the case.
Because it locks everyone in a position where it's like, cool, you have my outside leg with the pant grip. Like there is no position that I can pull that and get that back under me because you have the grip and the leg is straight. I can't do it. It can almost do nothing to break that grip in that position. It's extremely hard to do without overcommitting position.
And so that's not where we're at. We're in a situation where Jessica actually has sort of free reign over both of her legs.
Yeah.
Because Thamares is basing with her hands and moving through that way. So she takes the outside leg and scoots it underneath Thamares' butt, similar to what you would see in like a single leg X kind of situation where she's got essentially a butterfly hook underneath Thamares' butt, and she uses that pressure to pull her inside leg out, but then also has pant grips on Thamares' pants. And so she pulls that leg out, she keeps the pressure pushing on the butt, and in pulling that leg out, that gives her the opportunity to roll through and sit to that knee to come up to top. And so it's just this interesting way of, we're in a situation now where my legs are not being held tightly by my opponent in 50-50. I have access to both of them. And really all it takes then to get to the top is to be able to get a base underneath you.
Right.
And this is just a nice way. I'm going to hook in here, kick that out, pull my leg out, and then sit up. It's a very simple way to get a sweep in this situation. And it was
Khan gets it done, and that's the rest of the match. And then she basically is in the top of the guard and just holds it down.
Yeah, and it was
the rest of the match.
There was also some interesting things. Thamares was really trying to mount a bit of an offense here in that part and was looking like she was generating a bit of momentum. And then Jessica Khan's gi, this is not any fault to her or the rules or anything, but her gi gets pulled over her head pretty strong. So they pause.
Because if you pull the gi, if they take the material in the back and you yank it over like hockey jersey style, if you get above like the crown, usually it's like the top of the crown of the head, they will stop it because it
was way past that.
Oh yeah, it was over
top, over her head.
Like
so they pause. Thamares was generating a little bit of momentum. They have to pause for that, and then there's another pause where Jessica, I think her whole arm was out of the gi jacket, and so there was like the head thing happens. They fix that. They get bone again. Thamares has good grips. She's moving. She's getting Jessica a little off balance. Jessica apparently pulls her arm outside. I don't know how it happened. It was hard to see.
This happens in a lot of like really, really heavy a lot of really, really heavy like sleeve gripping. Depending on how you move, if you open your shoulder out while they have certain grips, you can basically accidentally pull your elbow through.
Yeah.
And then you functionally can't get your arm back in because you have to commit and you have to hold the lapel to pull everything back in. And so the only direction that arm can come at a certain point is out. And so because Khan is smart, probably, she's going, well, I can't push it back in because the other thing that will happen is you have a pistol grip on that on the hand, their
gonna make
hand
it
gets
through.
stuck and they have no grip.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're not going to get reset for that immediately, and so someone can work on offense off. Oh, I pulled the hand through, and so Khan pulls everything out, and like that's
puts her hand on the mat. We pause there, and this is a long pause.
Yeah. There's some time.
Khan takes some time to get her gi back on, a lot of time to tie her belt up, and then eventually the mat starts.
The rest tie.
Yeah, it was a rest tie for sure.
That happened this weekend. I was coaching a guy, and accidentally his extra time I added to his mat. I was trying to yell at the ref to get it fixed, and he's looking at me and he's dying. And he looks at me and he's like, he's tying his belt, and he has the competitor belt too. And I look at him and I go, tie. I think I either mouth at him, tie slow, or like basically take your time.
Yeah.
And then he goes like, oh right, like I can just tie this at like a normal. I'm like, yeah, you're like a middleweight, medium heavy guy, like you have time. And he ties. I see the wave of relief kind of go. I'm like, oh yeah, and he goes, okay, tie spell, like, and it's better.
It was like, one of those.
I was like, good job, buddy.
But then they get set back to the center, and then at that point, Jess is able to lock things down. So I'm not saying necessarily that Thamaras would have been able to use that momentum to gain anything, but it was.
There were definitely moments that heavily favored Khan in the match.
Yeah.
that were just a part of it.
It was just a part of it.
Yep.
But she had a beautiful sweep and wins the match for sure.
Yep. Moving on to the roosterweight division, we have Maisa Bastos defeating names again. Laviana Barbosa via points 9-0.
Yeah, dominant performance, which is what we've come to expect from Maisa.
Pretty much. Usually, it's either a sub or it's a dominant points victory for
both
Bastos.
sometimes.
Or both sometimes. This almost kind of went there. Double guard pull, penalty after 20 seconds. Another guard pull. Bastos gets a takedown, I think, in this at the beginning, and I was kind of like, I looked at it and went,
there were points scored, and that's the only explanation.
Well, I couldn't figure out the takedown. I got a little. I looked at it and went, maybe I missed something, but I went, Bastos is going to take this on points. So the first initial point
really matter.
if there is not as important to me. Really great knee cut with a nice grip. Again, it's
very standard
Bastos' game.
It's what she does every time.
Cuts through your guard. She takes as much time as she needs to do that. Again, props to Barbosa. She forced Bastos to pass, and she got her body completely like 180 degrees. Head was facing the opposite direction of the hips. But credit to Bastos. Bastos kept super diligent with her underside collar grip and that cross face just turning Barbosa's face. And Barbosa was trying to hold the half guard to prevent Bastos from just banging the knee cut through, because I think there were 2 minutes of this match where I was like, okay, and Bastos gets the pass. And Barbosa just did not let her get that pass. And I was impressed because you could see how twisted Barbosa's body is, and at that point you want to just like open your guard and try to work something else. But with Bastos, you're probably not going to get Bastos back into your guard, and so she just grits it and just like tries to fight and tries to basically continue to force Bastos.
You can only do that
to readjust
long against Maisa Bastos.
Well, Bastos just isn't going to readjust.
No,
like she's willing to just like sit there and like continue to drive forward.
And she's already up on points, so she doesn't need to force it.
So she just drives. Yeah. Eventually, she does get over, and she gets an amount and spends, I think, about 3 minutes in the back, not mount, back, and then working for this arm. And she controls it very well, but you can tell she never really like commits to but against Bastos. Bastos is not going to commit on the sub unless she is very sure that she's going to get it. Barbosa does a good job of defending it. She's in this weird kind of like low position that she doesn't really want to come up because Bastos has come behind her and get the arm, but she really can't ever turn Bastos through because Bastos is behind her shoulder for a lot of it. Bastos ends the match after about 3 minutes of that, and 9-0. Again, another extremely dominant performance from Maisa Bastos.
She's just so powerful in that weight class.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. Again, it's since Rokako, it's been awesome to see another female, very, very dominant female roosterweight in the division, because she has great technique too. It's also technique that I can follow. It's I want to say it's a basic game, but it is
it's fundamental jiu-jitsu done at an extremely high level, and I love that.
Yeah. It is absolutely awesome. So that does it for IBJJF 2022 Pans. Overall, one of the more fun pans that we've had in the last couple of years. Like I just think
there were very few matches that I was like, okay, I can skip through this one a little quickly. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of action packed, which I mean that's been a complaint about IBJJF majors for a while, is that there's just too many matches that are extremely slow. And this time
I
around,
definitely think that I definitely think that the pacing is still.
It's still slower, some other stuff, but this was at a pace where I'm happy with. Like I was good with this.
In contrast to the last week's ADCC.
Yeah, sure.
Of just like those 3, 6, 9-minute matches, finals 4, 4, and 4.
Yeah.
If they go that long, and how many subs we saw in the finals, like it's a pacing. I just have to get used to the interplay between like that speed of ADCC no-gi versus just the gi is a different speed.
Yeah, I mean, gi's always going to be slower.
Yeah.
The rule set here is not designed to be ADCC.
It's not designed to be exciting. It's designed to force you to play positionally for the points.
And I'm actually okay with that. I have no problem. I like points jiu-jitsu. I am happy about positional jiu-jitsu. I'm good with this. I think some of the rules changes that IBJJF made are finally starting to see something coming into effect. And I think
like a lot of the out-of-bounds stuff being points.
Yes, I like that.
I think that is a great incentive to be forced to work on the edge, because you will get scored against by a crafty player that knows how to use those rules. And we saw it. And we saw it in effect, and that that can win matches. Again, I would much rather see good positional jiu-jitsu and good like submission-oriented jiu-jitsu win matches. But if you're at the highest level, my interview with Kokorian, he talked about it. He goes, yeah, you're just not going to sub a lot of the really, really high-level guys. It's just not going to happen. And so even Deagle talked about it in our interview. Like, you just have to play for the points and play positionally. Like, that is what is at the high level.
I mean, we've had this conversation outside of the podcast before, but I have zero issue with that. I do not understand it. This sounds weird because the point of jiu-jitsu is to hit submissions, but I don't understand what the obsession with submissions is. Everyone...
They look cool. They're fun. They look cool.
And it's like, it's an immediate end of the match. People like knockouts in things, but at the same time, the sport is not just about submissions. That's one way to win, but the sport is about positional dominance.
Yeah.
Right? It's about grappling another person to the ground and exerting your will on them. And I don't see why we can't be impressed and happy about that too. And so I don't know. I'm a big fan of point jiu-jitsu. I'm a big fan of the way that things are set up. I think we've talked about this before too. I prefer like AJP rules a little bit to IBJJF. I think it keeps things more exciting. Yeah. But still, I don't mind there not being a lot of submissions, especially with high level guys.
Yeah, some of the changes I think have been good. I didn't really think that they are beginning to now move into the right direction. Addition of heel hooks and no-gi. Like we're moving glacially in the right direction, but
still in the right
we're
direction.
Moving now. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. So,
next thing up, heel hooks in the gi.
I'm down. We've talked about this for a year. It's just like it fixes 50-50 real quick.
Fixes 50-50.
That was fun. There was a couple matches I was watching 50-50. I was like, oh yeah, they just can dangle their feet out there because there's nothing that you can do offensively with your foot in that, with the heel in that position. Like you're not going to grab an ankle lock because it's positionally not advantageous to do that right now, and you can't turn it over for the heel. So I think it was in the Muniz and Andrew match. It was just like they were in 50-50 for a second, and they was like, your feet can just be here, and that's fine. And I was like, that's such a contrast to like the last 2 weeks of ADCC prep of just like, they going to take it off. Yeah. So moving on to next week, we're going to do very, very quick previews because we're already running a little bit long, and it's very past Zach's bedtime, and the show has to be out. The show has to be out in 20 minutes. Grappling the tempo. Main event, we have Khalil de Falhada versus Robert Maloff. Excited for that. Also some undercard matches. While we have a much larger card that comes out later this week. Unfortunately, I think Gabby Garcia was supposed to be on this. This is his event, but I think he has that injury from ADCC. Again, hope he heals up quick. I would love to see him on his own event doing it. He fought the Niz in the last one on this one. So that is happening on April 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. We also have the Hudson Invitational. Hudson Valley Invitational too. I don't know if we covered this last time. I think we did very, very briefly. I forget if it's an EBI. It's a no-gi style event, also happening on April 16th. And we also next weekend have Fight to Win 199 happening on April 16th. Getting close to Fight to Win 200. I'm curious what Seth's gonna do. I
feel like
Fight to Win 100 was in Hawaii. We saw Troy Everett versus not Chris Lytle.
I don't remember.
Anderson Silva debut. Yeah, I don't. Red hair.
Not going to remember.
Killing me. I'm going to...
Yeah.
Fight to Win 199. Fight to Win 200's coming up. I'm super excited for that. That's Fight to Win. I'm assuming that's going to be a real fun card. Hopefully, I'm trying to get some more previews for Fight to Win. Get those cards a little earlier so we can preview them. But overall, very fun week ahead of us. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yep.
Into the outro section.
On to the outro. Man got his brown belt.
Hey, finally, I got brown
Congrats.
belt. That's good. I'm doing jiu-jitsu now.
He deserved it a long time ago, but, broken back.
Yeah,
all
broken
kinds of
back,
nonsense.
spine surgery, got married, like all that good stuff, got in the way. But it got it when I got it, and I'm very happy. It was a fun gauntlet and promotion. Did 45 minutes of the round, kind of the way the balance does it.
Yeah.
New person every minute, and then a couple of rounds of like sparring and MMA, and then got the belt. So it was good. I got promoted with a bunch of other people in our association and gym. Then we did promotions today at Gamma Grapple Academy for some of the folks that train there. And it was just overall a really cool couple of days.
Yeah, it was a good weekend.
It was cool to get promoted and then go coach and then run my open mat.
Yeah.
And then my wife's open mat.
Yeah.
And then go and do promotions the next day as like one of the more senior people at the other gym. And then tomorrow I get to go coach. First day I'm coaching as a brown belt. We don't talk about like belts a lot for the folks on the gym. Most of the folks are black belts on the show, or black. I mean, purple, brown, and black is all the people on the show.
Most brown and black. Well, most are black, honestly.
Most are black belts. But we started the show in 2017 when I was a new purple belt with Josh. Josh, I think, was
he'd have been brown belt.
2-stripe brown belt at the time, 1 or 2 stripe brown belt at the time, and we talked about his black belt promotion years ago on the show, and. Dog's doing stuff. And so it's been really cool to like develop as a technician, and then on through all of my injuries and through like the spine surgery and like not being able to train, but in a extremely limited capacity that I didn't really talk about publicly for years. I'm not really sure if even in the surgery shows how much I talked about how limited my training was. There was a 6-month period where like I couldn't do anything aside from like show some basic stuff in the classes I had to teach.
Yeah.
Running the Hopkins program during that time was extremely difficult and leaned on a lot of people in that time, and finally going through the surgery and like getting back to the point where I can go and compete again was huge. I spent, I think, almost 5 years at Purple.
Yeah.
And it's been the majority.
Purple's a long one for a lot of people, though. It just is. For whatever reason, it ends up being a really long one for lots of people.
A year plus at each of the stripes, and it was just sort of what it was because of all of the. At Purple, I sprained both my knees 6 months apart, moved into a house with stairs. That was great. Broke my back. Did 2.5 years of PT and therapy before getting the surgery.
Yeah.
Got the surgery, and then I got brown finally after healing up, competed at Purple my final time, won double gold there, and then 51.5 weeks after surgery was awarded my brown belt by you, by Rob, who's also on the show, and by Greg, who I don't know if Greg's ever been on the show, but Greg has been a huge supporter of the show, and we haven't talked about that on air ever. Huge supporter for the first couple of years, like helping us financially with a lot of stuff about like how to set stuff up and like how to run things and promote, and huge help. And it's
also just generally being a good guy.
Yeah, and I teach at Greg's gym. Zach and I teach at the university, and you teach classes at the other gym.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool to go through this. I don't really have a point for any of this, but I appreciate...
It's the end of the show. We don't need a point.
I appreciate everyone that listens to this show coming on this journey and like listening to us learn and talk about and cover professional jiu-jitsu over the years. And I'm looking forward to another 250 shows of doing this, and eventually be like, I go black belt if I keep training. So
hopefully
very excited
hopefully
for
not
it.
250.
Hopefully, but again, no shows you're done, Zach. You're like, hey man, I got about 8 more shows in me.
No, I'm saying hopefully it's less than 250 weeks for you to get a fucking black belt.
It'll be when it is and what it is, and like getting this belt kind of really made me appreciate, through like the Purple was a shitty belt. Like I got fucked up with the Purple belt.
Wrong. Purple, but she was a shitty belt for you.
It was a shitty belt for me. Purple belt's an amazing belt.
Best belt.
It was an awesome belt.
I want to outside of you. I mean, you had a struggle.
I was so fucked up.
I want to take everyone that's purple belt and like Billy Madison, tell them to stay young. It's the fucking best one.
Yeah.
It's the best place. Don't ever grow up purple belts.
We had COVID during that time. Like I was so injured, I didn't get to travel and do a whole lot. And as a result, it let me lean into the show, into the podcast. Usually Rachel talks about it to me. She's like, I'm really happy that you had that, because like you would go and train as much as you could.
Yeah.
But it was like, there was 3 months I couldn't put my shoes on.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I couldn't touch my ankles. Better yet, like touch my shin. I couldn't touch my shins.
Yeah.
And so like leaning into it and like really being able to study jiu-jitsu and like
still being part of the community is another big thing, is that it
was
really
just
easy to fall out of touch.
it was an awesome outlet for me to have in that time, to get through all of that and to get finally like healthy again, to be able to be like an active part of the community on the mat.
Yeah.
And not just like as kind of a coach and then on the mic. So it's been awesome. Very excited. You'll hear about us talk about belts again in a couple of years again. But it's been a very fun ride, and I'm looking forward to it. Any other closing thoughts, Zach?
Nope.
Good times.
Good thing to end on.
All right. So as always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, co-host
Zach.
and we got the Grappling Rewind. See the mat, whatever it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.